Dalet Amud Aleph, right at the top of the Amud. Continue on with the Mishnah. Ve'elu shechayavim bekalban. These are the type of people who have to pay the kalban. A kalban is a surcharge when they had to change the money. If they had a seller and they changed it to 2 half shekalim, so they would have to pay the money changer a surcharge in order to convert it, to change it into 2 half shekalim. The Tikkun L'Chadin explains that during the time when the people, the Kol Yisrael donated, had to give the machzas a shekel, actually a machzas a shekel was worth more than a half a seller. 2 machzas a shekel was actually worth more than a seller, because since the machzas a shekel was in high demand, because that's what everybody came and donated to the Beis HaMikdash, it was worth a little bit more. If one would give a seller to the money changer to get the machzas a shekel, he would have to add on a little bit more in order to change it to get the 2 half shekalim. He would have to pay a surcharge. So the Chachamim levied in certain cases, they levied a surcharge on a person. If he is not giving a machzas a shekel, he has to pay that extra surcharge, because the machzas a shekel is actually worth more than a half a seller. That's according to the Chachamim. As we'll see, the Shita Rameir is that the Machti Kalban is actually a din deraisa. So it's the Chiyuv is broader than according to the Chachamim. So as we'll see through the Mishnah and the Gemara, the more details on the Kalban. But the Zok the Mishnah, Ve'el Shechayam Bekalban. These are the people who have to pay the Kalban. Leviim, V'Yisraelim, V'Gerim, V'Avodim Mishuchraim. These are the people that have to pay this extra surcharge. Avaloi Kahanim, V'Nashim, V'Avodim Ketanim. But not Kahanim, Nashim V'Avodim Ketanim. They do not have to pay this surcharge. So therefore, a shekel al yad kayin, if a person gives a half a shekel on behalf of a kayin, al yadei ha'ish, or on behalf of one al yadei eved, or an eved al yadei katan, poti does not have to pay the machzas, the surcharge, the kalban rather. So, for instance, now there's Chiluk is exactly what case we're talking about, but obviously if he gives a machzas a shekel, there's no surcharge. If anybody gives an actual machzas a shekel, there's no kalban. He's giving the machzas a shekel. But as opposed to in a case where a Yisrael, let's say he would give a seller on behalf of himself and for somebody else, there would be a kalban, as we'll see. But if he gives it on behalf of the other party, if the other party is one of these, kohen or an isha, etc., that kohen nashim avodim ketanim, where there is no chiyuv kalban, he doesn't have to pay a kalban. Or if he gives a seller for a kohen and an isha, there's no kalban, because this party, the other party, there's no chiyuv in a kalban. But if he gives a machzas shekel on behalf of his friend, meaning he gives a seller, and he wants to, with this, to be yotzei his chiv of machzas shekel, and he's also loaning, as we'll see later, we're talking specifically by a loan, he's also loaning to his friend the money for his friend's machzas shekel. So in this case, where he's a bar chiyuva and his friend is a bar chiyuva, they have to pay. He has to pay a kalban. Rameir says no. You have to pay 2. Each one has to pay a kalban. A nice seller. If a person gives a seller for it, so he gives a seller for his chiv machzas a shekel, v'noitl shekel, and he takes a shekel. What we mean over here is a shekel, but we mean the machzas a shekel. The terminology, it's used in the Mishnah as shekel, but it's referring to the machzas a shekel of the Torah. So if a person gives a seller and he takes change, v'noitl shekel, machzas chavish shnei kolbainos. Here he has to pay 2 kolbainos, meaning he gave the seller, so he's paying hektish with a machzas a shekel. He's getting a machzas a shekel in return, so he has to pay 2 kolbainos, one for the one that he's giving and one that he's getting in return. A shekel al yedei ani, if one gives a machzas a shekel for an ani, va'al yedei shechina, or for his neighbor, al yedei be'al yad ben iroi, or for someone who lives in a city, potter, then he's potter from a kalban. So on a gift, the Chachamim did not impose the kalban on a matana. So this is a gift, so there's no kalban. But in hilva, if he lent to them, chayiv, then there's a chayiv. If it's a loan, it's chayiv. Brothers who are partners, so they inherited from their father, they inherited an estate. When they have to pay a kalbain, then they're potter from meiser behema. If they're chayiv in meiser behema, pturim min a kalbain, then they're considered potter from a kalbain. The din of meiser behema, so from the new flock that is born during that year, every 10th one is meiser. It has to be brought up to Yerushalayim and eaten as kochim and brought and eaten as kochim kalim. The dinim of kalban and meiser behema they're reverse. They're inverse to each other. When the achim are considered partners and they share in the father's estate, so if they're considered partners and that they're therefore potter from meiser behema, it's considered shutvim, and they're considered to be partners, it's not considered one, then they're considered partners and they're potter, therefore partners are potter from meiser behema, but then they're chayavim bekalban. Then they're chayavim bekalban because they're considered not one entity, they're considered two separate entities, and two separate entities are chayav with the kalban. If they are considered to be one entity, and therefore they're not partners, it's one entity, it's one estate, and therefore they're chayiv in meiser behema, but if it's one entity, then they're potter from the kalban. So we'll see in the Gemara the details of this halacha. V'kamu kalban, how much is a kalban? What is the amount of the kalban? It's a mo'ah kesef, divra mer. They say it's a half a mo'ah. A mo'ah is a sixth of a dinner, and this is a machlekes, which do we say it's a mo'ah or it's a chatzi mo'ah, a silver mo'ah? Is it a mo'ah or a chatzi mo'ah? Let's see the Gemara. Afal Pisham Razak the Gemara, even though they said that by Ketanim that they're potur, and we have this category of people that they're potur by the Kahanim and the Noshim and the Ketanim, but Halitvaya ain't Taivin. But we do not demand from them. They say that if we give the Chmasas a shekel, we accept it. But we don't demand from them the Masas HaShekel. So we accept it if they can give it, but we don't demand it from them. Now here, in the previous Mishnah, you said we do demand it. Here you say you don't demand it. In the previous Mishnah we're talking where he was Hevishtei Saras. When he's at that level, at that age, then we do demand it. But here we're talking Shaloi Hevishtei Saras, so we don't demand it. Anachri v'hakusi, we don't accept the Masas HaShekel from Anachri v'hakusi. Amma Rabbi Bo Tifta Command Amar Kusi Kanachri. This must be that our Mishnah must be according to the Mandomer that a Kusi is considered a Nachri. And therefore we don't accept it from him. This Palgan because we find that there's a Machalekes Tanoim. Kusi Kanachri Diva Rabbi. Rabbi says that a Kusi is Kanachri. Rabbi Shimon Gamil Leimer Kusi Yisrael Chol Davar. He says no, that a Kusi is a Ger Emes and it's Yisrael Chol Davar. Amar Rabbi Lazar, he says Masnisa Benachri. He says that our Mishnah is talking about Nachri. Habakusim Loi. But as far as Kusim, that he holds not that way. He holds that Kusim could be considered Geri Emes, and therefore the Mishnah could be talking Dafka by Nachrim, but not by Kusim. Betanikin, and we learned that way in the Brisa. It says Adam L'Rabbas as a Ger. It says that an Adam that Adam Ki Yaakov became Korban Hashem. When person wants to bring a korban, he brings a bakar b'beim and tzayin takriv korbanchem. So it says Adam. It says l'rabbos is a ger. It says, it doesn't say Yisrael, it says Adam, it's even ger. Mikem, but it's from amongst you, it's a meal. Mikem lo, it's a mumar. That's we might say the mumar. That from a mumar we do not accept it. But from the fact that you see that we accepted gerim, then if we consider kusim to be geri emes, then we can accept it. Masnisim pligal Rabbi Elazar, the Mishnah is a kasha on Rabbi Elazar because ein mekam liyadam kini zavim zavim kini yoldas. It says we don't accept these birds for the Zovin and Zovis and Yoldas. Now, if we're talking about Davke and Nachrim and not Kusim, V'chiyesh Kinu Zovin Zovis ben Nachrim, that doesn't apply to Nachrim at all. Must be that it's talking, is referring to Kusim, that even though they are noyeg with these halachas, and because they're noyeg like Yisraelim, but in fact they are not, and therefore we don't accept it from them. El Reisha ben Nachrim Seif by Kusim. Are going to say the Reisha is talking about Nachrim and the Seif by Kusim, where it says, Kenhu, yes, Reisha ben Nachrim Seif by Kusim. That is the case. Amr of Yechner. Regarding what the Mishnah said that we do not accept donations from Nachrim. Betchila, in the beginning of the building of the Beis Hamikdash, in Mekam Lahem, we don't accept any nedavos, any donations from them. Lo Dover Mesuyim, not a specific item, a distinctive item. Lo Dover Shein Mesuyim, and even something that is not particular, not distinctive, is not something that is specific to them. For instance, money. We don't accept that either. Meaning, the Pasuk says in Ezra, the Pasuk says, we should not be building it together. Meaning, because there's a chashash, there's a concern that the Nachrim will try to then influence the building of it and even stop the building of it, like we see that the Nachrim did try to stop it. It says, so they did try to prevent it. So therefore, Rav Yochanan says, in the beginning of it, as we're building it, we don't accept anything from them. But at the end of the binyan, mekam lahem dover shein masuyim, then mekam dover masuyim. We do accept from him a dover that is ein masuyim, but we don't accept something which is identifiable. Something which is identifiable, we don't accept it from them because it's a bizoyin. It's a bizoyin for the Beis Hamikdash that they'll have the identified this item with a nachri as something that they will boast about. So we don't accept them a dover masuyim, but a dover shein masuyim we do accept from them. But Rav Shimon Lakish Amar bein betchila bein b'seif, whether the beginning or the end doesn't make a difference. Ein mekabel mehem loy dover masuyim, loy dover shein masuyim. We don't accept anything from them, not at the beginning and not at the end. Masnisa pligal Rabbi Yochanan, we see the volume brisa. It is a kasha of Yochanan because it says ein mekabel mehem hekdesh unadava leberek habayis. We don't accept from the nachri hekdesh unadava leberek habayis. We don't accept them for it. So you see that we don't accept them whether it's something which is a hekdesh. We don't accept a hekdesh or nadava. We don't accept for them. So l'cher it's stam. It's unqualified. It would seem to mean that we don't accept anything at all from them. So possibly, so we can answer it, bein betchila bein b'seif. You could answer that perhaps it's talking whether at the beginning or at the end. So when it says we don't accept from them at all, it means a dover masuyim. A dover masuyim and a dover masuyim we never accept from them. Or alternatively, we can say pasa betchila. You can say that it's talking davke at the beginning. Even if it's money, then we don't accept it because as Rav Yochanan says that by Tchila we don't accept anything from them. So even if it's money, then we'd have to throw it into the Yam HaMelech so nobody would get hano from their makdashit, but we can't accept it, so it would have to be thrown into the Yam HaMelech so nobody would be able to get hano from them. So you have two alternatives on how to learn it. You could be talking about that it's talking about a dover masuyim, so it doesn't matter whether it's the beginning or the end, or it could be talking where it's at the beginning and whether it's a dover masuyim or ain't masuyim. Rav Shimon Lakish Omar bein betchila bein b'seif ein mekabel lahem loy dover masuyim. Rav Shimon ben Lakish says we don't accept anything from them, any type of thing, any time. Masnisa pligal Rav Shimon Lakish. So the following Mishnah would seem to argue on that. The Tanya learned in the Mishnah Hakol Shavim Shem Noidrim V'Nidorim. All agree that in this point they all agree that the Nachrim can make a neder and they can be the subject of a neder. They can make a neder and they can be the subject of it. Somebody could make a neder on them, on their behalf. or on to obligate them. So we'll see what that means in a minute. So Paiser la oil. That we can say that what it's talking about over here is we're not talking about a nedova to the Bedek Habayis, we're not talking about using their nedovas for the building of the Bedek Habayis, we're talking about an oila. And Nachri can bring an oila, he can be nader an oila, so therefore that's what we're talking about. So Gemara says, Nicha noijin oila. We understand that they can make a neder, that the Nachri can obligate himself and make a neder to bring an oila. But the Doran oila loiba, what? How can you say that they're the subject of a neder to bring an oila? How can you obligate the Nachri to bring a korban? The Nachri can make his own nedov to bring a korban. How can you obligate him? Ella, we understand that Kishamri Yisrael Harei Alai Oila. What it's talking about is not that you're obligating the Nachri per se. Rather, the Yisrael said Harei Alai Oila, he's obligating himself. The Nachri says that what he said should be upon me. So therefore he takes it upon himself. But what we mean to say is that the neder that the Yisrael made could be imposed on the Nachri if he himself voluntarily brings it upon himself, but it's the neder that the Yisrael made, the Nachri can impose it on himself. So, Frank the Gemara, but Reish Lakish says we don't accept anything from them. In oil we accept, but we don't accept anything that goes other than to the korban. Maybe well, if the Nachri, if he brings the korban oila, accompanying the korban oila has to be the nesachim. You have to bring with it the wine, the mincha, the nesachim that comes with it. Now, meiser nesachim loyal klishor in it. Now, what about if there's the excess of nesachim that's not used for the korban? What do we do with that? Don't we use that to purchase klishoras? So you see that what he brings, what the nedomas of the Nachri are used for the Beis HaMikdash. Nimsa maybe Dor Shein Masuyim, doesn't turn out that he is bringing a Dor Shein Masuyim, meaning the Nachri, he can make a nedava for an oila. Now with the oila comes the nesachim. He sends money in for the nesachim. He doesn't send in the actual the oil, the nesachim themselves, because that he'll be mutamed. So he sends in the money to purchase the nesachim. Now that excess of the money, he sends in a certain amount of money, whatever's left over, they use for the klishoras. Don't you see, doesn't it turn out that we do use a dor shein masuyim for the Beis HaMikdash, and we accept it from the Nachri? So it's a kash and Reish Lakish. Esav Rav Yossi Barabun. Rav Yossi Barabun answered, V'hataninan. Well, we learned something similar in the Mishnah. Ne'arachim. The Nachrim can be the subject of an erech, Avau, or V'orachim, or they can make erechim. So if he says ereki alai, so this is really two different tanoim. This is Rav Yehuda and Rav Meir. But if he says ereki alai, or someone says erech ploni, and the erech of this Nachri alai, so it's binding according to Rav Meir and according to Rav Yehuda. If he says, according to Rav Meir, if someone says erech Nachri alai, it's binding, and according to Rav Yehuda, if the Nachri says ereki alai, it's binding. But I'll call upon him. What do you do with the money? Doesn't that money go to the Bedek Habayis? So you see that we do accept money from the Nachri for Bedek Habayis. So how would Reish Lakish understand that? What are you going to say over there? How are you going to explain that according to Reish Lakish? You'll explain it. He's not donating it to the Beis HaMikdash. He's donating it l'shamayim. And me'elein him going to Bedek Habayis, but on its own it goes to Bedek Habayis. I mean, his intention is not that it should go to Bedek Habayis. He's making an error. He doesn't have that it should go specifically to Bedek Habayis. Now, what we use the money for is Bedek Habayis, so that's me'elein. That's on its own. It's not directly from him. Kenat Omar Afhacha, you'll say over here as well. L'shamayim Muskaven, when he makes the oila, his menad of the oila, and he has to bring the nesachim, his mind is kavan is l'shem shamayim, not l'bedek habayis, not for klishoris. Umeleim heim boim l'klishoris, and memela on its own, it comes for the klishoris.